You are listening to the Eskimo Empire Podcast, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Empire. It's the Eskimo Empire Podcast.
And here's Mike Riley, takes the drop, waits and throws, and he's going deep downfield. And Darius Bowman. Oh my goodness, what a catch by Darius Bowman. You won't see many better than that. Franklin to Zylstra, touchdown Eskimos. Pressure's coming. Oh, Levi Mitchell goes down. There's a big play for the defense. Somersaults for everybody.
Welcome back to the Turf District for episode 93, the Earthquake edition of the Eskimo Empire Podcast. I'm your host, Andrew. Thanks for downloading and having a listen. And joining me, as always, is the one and only Superfan Mike.
Football's here.
It is. It's that time again. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited.
The off-season lasts way too long.
Yes, regular season is
one
here.
Week too long.
We have 23 weeks that we are going to be doing this show, right?
Fantastic.
Exactly. Talking about the Eskimos each and every week. We do have a packed show for you today. We've got, of course, Esks and CFL season preview with two of the best guys around. But before we get to any of that, last week we lost a CFL legend in Don Matthews. And I think the best way to kick off this show is to pay a tribute to him with our Eskimo History segment.
Welcome to This Week in Eskimos History. This week, we are going to do things a little differently, as we are going to dedicate this episode to the memory of Don Matthews. Don Matthews came to the CFL in 1977, joining new Eskimos head coach Hugh Campbell as a linebacker coach, after coaching high school football in Oregon and a career as an offensive coordinator in his alma mater, the University of Idaho. Matthews was promoted to defensive coordinator from 1978 to 1982, overseeing the Alberta Crude and Bone defenses that won 5 consecutive Grey Cups in that time. 3 of Campbell's 4 assistant coaches went on to head coaching careers after Edmonton, with Matthews replacing another former Eskimo assistant, Vic Rapp, as headman for the BC Lions for the 1983 season. The Don returned to the Eskimos in 1989, again as the defensive coordinator in a season that saw the Eskimos go 16-2, still the most wins in a season by a CFL club in the history of the league, before once again leaving to become a head coach, this time to the Toronto Argonauts. After stops in Saskatchewan, Baltimore, and a second stint in Toronto, Matthews returned for his third and final tenure in Edmonton, this time finally as the head coach in 1999, coaching for 2 years before being let go 2 days before the first preseason game of the 2001 season. He ended up in Montreal in 2002, facing and defeating his old club in the Grey Cup that year, and faced Edmonton 2 more times there in 2003 and 2005. He finished his career with Toronto partway through the 2008 season before retiring for good. Don Matthews appeared in 16 Grey Cups as an assistant and head coach, winning 5 as head man and 5 more as an assistant with the Eskimos dynasty. He retired as the winningest coach in CFL history and remains tied for most Grey Cup wins as a head coach with the man who brought him into our league, Hugh Campbell. His legacy lives on as the Eskimos' Jason Maas and Ottawa's Rick Campbell were both brought into the league during Don's time as head coach of the Edmonton Eskimos. He will be missed by fans of the Canadian Football League and the many players he crossed paths with.
Let's hear you cheer and holler for a mighty famous team. Let's hear you roar, you know what, for a team that's on repeat. Our voices rise up to the skies, the fans are glad to scream. We love those Eskimos.
Looking back now at some Eskimo-related birthdays from June 21st to 27th. On June 24th, Jason Tucker, receiver 2002 to 2008, turns 41. On June 27th, Patrick Kabongo, offensive lineman from 2004 to 2011, turns 38. And on June 23rd, current Eskimo Kenny Ladler, linebacker Nickelback, 2016 to present, turns 25. And looking at other important dates in the Empire, June 23rd, 1951, as the Calgary Stampeders had previously signed Reg Clarkson, a player still under contract to the Edmonton Eskimos, though he was no longer on the active roster, the Calgary Stampeders sent fullback Normie Kwong to the Eskimos as compensation. Clarkson had been originally signed by Anis Stukas midway through the Esks' inaugural 1949 season, starring at halfback for 9 games until the end of the season. He no longer figured in the Eskimos' plans for the 1950 season, but was never officially released. So when the Calgary Stampeders signed him to their club on May 9th, 1951, Edmonton cried foul and received a player that the Stampeders felt would likely not be the same athlete after a number of injuries he had sustained over the past year. Kwong proved them wrong, going on to fully recover and star for the Eskimos for 10 seasons, retiring after 1960. Rushing for 71 touchdowns, adding 4 more receiving and 1 fumble return major, and 8,768 yards along the ground, compared to Clarkson's 2 touchdowns and 90 yards over his 7-game career. Many consider this to be the most lopsided trade in CFL history. And on June 22, 1979, 8-year Eskimo wide receiver and 1973 CFL Most Outstanding Player, George McGowan, announces his retirement from the CFL. Joining the Eskimos in 1971, McGowan tried out at both receiver and defensive back before making the club on offense. When first Bruce Lemmerman and then Tom Wilkinson joined the club, McGowan instantly found a connection with both pivots, registering his first 1,000-yard season in 1972, before hauling in 81 passes for 1,123 yards in his third year, including a game on September 3, 1973, where he set the CFL record for most receptions in a game with 15, still the Edmonton Eskimo record. After his MOP season in 73, McGowan was hampered by injuries for the 1974 season, catching only 8 passes that year. An off-season training regimen brought him back to an all-star caliber, as he registered a then-record 98 receptions for 1,472 yards in 1975. Injuries began to take their toll, and he saw less and less time each year for the next 3 years before hanging them up for good in 1979, to be replaced by a newcomer who would go on to his own legendary Eskimo career, Brian Kelly. Thank you again for listening to another episode of This Week in Eskimos History. Please follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Esks History, or find us on Facebook under This Day in Esks History. Until next week, bite on Eskimos.
Going for a touchdown. Going for a touchdown. Going for a touchdown. We love those Eskimos.
Wow, that was amazing, Superfan. Thank you for the proper way that we talk about the Don in the Turf District. And,
for sure.
That was amazingly done. So
thank you.
I do want to thank Travis for having me co-host 2 and Out podcast last week, and make sure that this week you catch up with the BC Lions Den, because I'm going to be on with Mojo and, of course, the Podfather. Catch all the other great shows on the Canadian Football Pod Network. Okay, well, you've heard them already. They're now back in the Turf District, and we are going to talk Eskimos and a little bit of a season preview here with our 2 friends from 630 CHED, Morley Scott, Dave Campbell. Welcome back, boys.
Thank you very much.
It's good to be back, guys.
And this is great. We always love when you guys come in and get a chance to chat with us. Let's talk about the final preseason game, because obviously you guys are the only 2 people at this table that got to see it. So tell us a little bit about what kind of jumped out at you in that particular game.
Well, first of all, the way that the Eskimos' depth gave the Bombers' first-team offense and defense a run for their money.
That was crazy.
Yeah.
They really played quite because we were missing a fair chunk of starters in this game.
Yeah,
or all of them. Yeah,
pretty much,
especially offensively, right?
There's only 2 starters on offense that played, and that's Tony Washington and Simeon Rotier played at center.
Right? Yeah.
That game, and the rest was all the hopefuls. I mean, I know Kendall Lawrence was in as a veteran, but it was
how that turned out.
Yeah, not well. Sorry, Kendall. But I was impressed how much they gave the first team offense and defense of the Bombers real fits, a lot of trouble, and they finally got going late in the second quarter when the Eskimos started to substitute more of their depth, and we're seeing more of the 3s and the 4s play. So that was impressive. What was impressive too is the fact that Zach Klein led him back, or led the charge, 15 points down with 3 minutes to go.
Yeah.
I think once we hit the warning, it was about 15 point deficit. So,
well, him and Marion Grice at the end were just had a connection there, right?
So, for sure.
But that Klein kid though, he's playing with some major emotion and
but he's smart too.
Amazing story.
Really well with that clock.
He's a great story, and if you haven't, I know I tweeted out the link to it when they signed him. Really a good story with his past and his colleges, and he just ran. And he's not a bad kid. Like you hear stories about kids who change college, and it's usually because something's happened.
Right.
Well, nothing's happened except maybe a coach got fired who promised to make him the starter, and he never got the opportunity. So he moved around. I think he had 4 schools in 4 years.
Yeah. Yes.
And as he said, he's very good at reading and learning playbooks because he's had so many of them handed to him. And he's a real smart kid. I really liked his composure and his courage standing in the pocket, especially in the game, the first game he didn't do much, just one pass, right?
It was a pretty good.
And when I say he didn't do much, it was for 90 yards and a touchdown. But he stood in the pocket. He was able to shimmy away from some tacklers and avoid sacks, and then look downfield and have the composure, not just to avoid the sack, but then make the play after that, right? Not just scramble for a yard or two like some quarterbacks do, but he's able to point downfield and find the receiver down there. I was really impressed with the way he played. I think he's a guy who's going to be kind of neat to watch develop over the next couple of years and see how much progress he makes. He is as green as they come in pro football.
Oh yeah,
to accomplish what he accomplished after arriving at camp 10 days in is pretty impressive, really.
Yeah, I've been very impressed with him. But the other part, and I'm sure this is important for you guys, he's an amazing interview.
I really enjoyed. I did. I don't know if you heard it or not. I put up on our website 7 minutes just talking about his story and how he got here, and talking about the go bag, waiting for a phone call from the Eskimos that finally came, and then he just took off and came here. Yeah, he's a really, and again, we joke. I like the guys who are good talkers, and I like him because he's a good conversationalist, tells a good story.
Well, and word from the dressing room was he was quite emotional.
I bet.
And that's just great. He's got a home.
Yeah.
Right? And he'll be here for the year and who knows how long after that. So I think that's really cool to see a story like Zach Klein's, and we get to see it unfold under our eyes. And, this is a good part of the story.
And I think Edmonton's going to love this kid, too. I mean, everyone that you've talked to is just glowing about this guy, especially after the first preseason game. Everyone's like, well, let's just see him where he has more than one pass. But even listening to you guys, I mean, he was connected with his first pass, connected with the second. Yeah. Like it was 5 or 6 passes before he had his first incompletion in the CFL.
And wasn't the first one the first one that went incomplete? I think it was to the sidelines and the receiver was out of bounds.
Yeah.
He caught it, but he was out of bounds. So he still even connected. Even the incompletions were completions, if you know what I'm saying. So,
exactly.
And the thing is, he's not going to play this year. If he does play this year, it's because the Eskimos have a boatload of injuries.
Yeah, which is not good.
I think there's a danger of rushing young quarterbacks. The Eskimos are not in a position to do that. You got Riley as your 1, James Franklin as your 2, Danny O'Brien as your 3.
Right.
Let Zach Klein marinate.
Marinating in green and gold.
You could always call him up and injure him.
Right.
But I think they're going to try and keep him on that PR as much as they can and let him develop. I mean, it worked for Matt Nichols for 1 whole year.
Yes.
In 2011 here, so it can work for Zach Klein.
Yeah.
I think the only chance we're going to see him even on the sidelines is if there's a trade and he bumps up to number 3. And even then, he's just holding a clipboard.
You okay, Andrew?
I'm fine.
I didn't say who.
I know. That's why I'm perfectly fine. I am perfectly fine.
Would you like to talk about that?
Let's talk about
just for this therapist.
Let's talk about the turtle in the room. Okay. So James Franklin again has a great showing in that game as well, and going up against most of the Bombers' ones.
Yeah, and can I say, I just want to say, we've talked so much through training camp about who played well, and it just seems like nobody mentions James Franklin. But if you go back and look at the games, he was phenomenal. He had a tremendous training camp, played so well in both preseason games. He's, we haven't seen a large sample size, but the more you see of him, the more you think, man, this is the real deal.
His poise in the pocket is just outstanding. At least in the first game we saw.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and from all accounts, between listening to you guys and looking at the stats afterwards, he had a great showing in the second game. And it seems like he's got quite a connection with Duke Williams, which I want to talk about in a second. But with Franklin right now, obviously we know he's here for the season. We have him signed for this season. I mean, I can't imagine Brock Sunderland having to sit right now and look at this situation and what is he going to do?
It's a big problem. Well, not a problem.
Well, it's a good problem to have.
It's a big challenge more than anything else.
Huge,
because you have to make a decision, right?
It's a challenge that could be a problem real fast.
And you also have to get James Franklin to make a decision too, right?
Correct.
The Eskimos' decision is easy. They want to keep him.
right?
Yes.
Franklin now has to decide, okay, do I want to stay on the patient road, or do I want to be a starter somewhere right now?
Or does he want to try the NFL?
Or does he get a chance at the NFL? That's another option as well. Maybe
even the PR, he's going to make way more money than he's doing here.
And he's still young too, right?
Right.
He's only just 25, 26.
And went to a big school.
Yeah, so he's known. He's on the radar, obviously, already. Yeah. So, and I don't know if this mixes into it that much because he's still at the top of his game, but Mike Riley's going to be 33 next season, right? Mm-hmm. But quarterbacks can play.
We saw with Henry Burris
into their 30s and be and Mike Riley is I think still on the upswing. I think he's going to get better before he starts to drop off. Right. So it's a conundrum wrapped in a piece of bacon. It's going to be tough.
That makes it sound too good.
That's true.
Where's said bacon?
We got 10 minutes. Does that count?
It's okay.
We lost Dave.
It's going to be a challenge. Brock Sunderland has some thinking to do because he's got to make some tough decisions in this. And again, it's a good decision. It's a good problem to have because a lot of teams don't have one good quarterback. Well, not a lot of teams, but some teams don't have one good quarterback. The Eskimos have two that could start probably for most teams in the CFL right now.
The whole picture for me, as much as I am a huge James Franklin fan, both
that is brand new information.
Yeah, I know. It's a shock. Both on the field as a player and off the field as a person, no matter which way you go, I want to see a return because both of them are amazing quarterbacks.
Yeah, and I will say if it is Franklin that's traded, they will likely trade him in the offseason. I can see a Mike Riley, Darian Durant type deal, which might diminish the Eskimos' bargaining power and what they get back.
Right.
But here's the problem. You could trade him in August. You can trade him now. You could trade him in September. You can trade him at the deadline. But does that make sense for the Eskimos for 2017 for their QB depth? No. All depends what Franklin feels.
How comfortable he is. Right? Yeah.
So if he believes he's a starter, then you play out this year and you see what happens in 2018.
It is one of the interesting stories of the season that no one will want to talk about all year.
Exactly. This is likely the last time we talk about it on here.
It's got nothing to do with 2017, right? And that's what everybody's focused on. So I've talked to Franklin about it. And I talked to Sunderland about it, and Franklin both just said, he said, I'm just doing what I can do, controlling what I can control, trying to be the best quarterback I can in 2017. And let's face it, the better he is in 2017, the better his situation is going to work out for 2018.
Right. Okay, two more that I just want to talk about quickly in the preseason games. Duke. Oh, my goodness. Yeah. What a find. This guy looks like the real deal and a big dude, big receiver.
And it sounds like his head's screwed on right. I mean, from the interview that we saw Terry Jones had.
Yeah. Well, and, he's from, people say, well, he's from Auburn. Yeah, he played one game because he got in so much trouble. But, he reminds me a little bit of the elder statesman in the receiving corps from the American side of things in Darius Bowman.
Yeah.
And Morley and I have had a chance to talk with Duke Williams as well, and he, very humble demeanor, I would say. He's just happy to play football and that a team took a chance on him. So Darius Bowman had nothing but great things to say about him today after practice. So I have a lot of, optimism about Duke Williams. We'll see. I mean, I think there's a chance he's going to play this week in BC.
Seems he's got everything straightened out off the field, and man, he's good on the field. So I'm looking forward to it. Maybe this year, after what happened with Darrell Walker 2 years ago and Brandon Zilstra last year, maybe the Eskimos say, why don't we play these good receivers from the start of the season?
Maybe we should just try getting them in there.
See what they can do. So, but you know what? Maybe he's going to have to wait his time too, right? I mean, you're pretty jammed at the receiver spot.
Yeah, if he does make that roster where he's going to be playing, though, I guarantee you right now, this is just kind of a side note, but if you're playing CFL fantasy, pick him up because he's going to be dirt cheap and he's going to. Oh, is he expensive?
Yeah,
already?
DraftKings, he's definitely more expensive,
but not on not on CFL.ca.
Right.
He's cheap on CFL.ca. So that's I know. You're welcome. That was the last.
Find out Friday morning.
Yeah, exactly. So that'll be a good one. Okay, last one because I thought he just had a massive game in the second game, and because we all love him here, Mr. Earthquake,
appropriately in episode 93,
massive game, quarterback pressure, quarterback sack, 3 tackles. So glad he made this team, and I for a guy who is quote unquote undersized, he's making a name for himself against these guys.
Yeah, and I think it's just he's talked about it all through camp that people have always told me I can't do it, so he's out to prove he can do it.
Yeah,
and he had 3 quarterback pressures in in the first game against Calgary. Then he had, I think, just one, but in Winnipeg, that could be cheap hometown scoring from CFL stats in Winnipeg. I don't know, because I thought I saw him a lot more than one QB pressure. But yeah, he looked good. And what's evident right away is the speed. The strength he will have to work on, because if he does play and he's playing against first team American tackles, and they're behemoths. So
Travis Bond.
Yeah, exactly.
Giant.
So, but I like what I see from Boateng so far, and he's proven the doubters wrong so far. Can he do it in the regular season? That's the question mark. I mean, he's going to be a good special teamer in this league, but can he be a starter, a ratio changing DN, or can he just be a good rotational player? So I think there's some reasonable expectation now for Kwaku Boateng, but now he has to come through with it.
He got a chance and he took advantage of it. That's the bottom line for him, and he was so good. And I loved how we talked to him post game, and he talked about the deficiencies. He said, I was surprised at how fast the quarterbacks got rid of the ball in the CFL. He said, I'm used to 3-4 seconds, right, at the CIS or U Sports level. But CFL, it's like less than 2 seconds.
Especially against Calgary.
Yeah, especially against Calgary, right. So he knows he's got to make some adjustments. And he even said in that game he started doing things differently. In his first CFL game, he made adjustments to get to the quarterback faster. So he's a smart kid. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And he talked about his conditioning. And I talked to him one day at practice between the preseason games, and he was coming off the field, and I just started a conversation, and he's huffing and puffing because he's working on his conditioning. He says, I'm running, I'm doing everything I can cardio-wise because I got to get better conditioning. I got to be better game shape. So he knows what to do. He knows how to fix it. And he's only been here for 4.5 minutes, and he's already trying to fix it. So I think that's pretty impressive.
Well, this is a guy that was number 2 ranked in September in the first rankings.
Yeah.
And then fell mostly because A, he had the minicamp invite to Chicago, and B, because he had really no special teams.
Right. But who is he? What is he? Is he a DN, a linebacker?
Exactly.
Just on
right.
Special teams ace? What is he?
But with no special teams film,
right?
I mean, you have no idea, right? So he started dropping, but he didn't drop that far. To get him in the 5th round, 41st overall,
potential steal.
That is got to be going to be a steal.
He's a classic. Hugh Campbell used to call him tweeners, right?
Right.
Yeah.
He's the classic tweener.
Yeah.
You're big enough to be a defensive end. Maybe you're too big to be a linebacker. So he's got a. I think is because of his great speed and his great get off.
Oh my!
On the line, I think he's going to be on the defensive end. When
I'm
push
so
comes
glad
to
you
shove
put on the line in that sentence. I was a little worried for a minute.
It's going to be great to see what Benny can do, to develop something that's going to work for him.
All right. Yeah, that was fantastic. Okay, let's talk about the cuts, just so we can get through some of those. So let's list them off here. Eskimos released running back Johnny Augustine, wide receiver Anthony Barrett, which is a bit of a...
That was a bit of a surprise.
Little bit of a surprise in being a veteran. Long snapper Casey Chin, linebacker DJ Lalama, defensive lineman Milk Truck Mark Mackey.
That was sad.
That's sad, yeah, because of the greatest nickname.
Yes.
Defensive lineman Ellie Nagoy, fullback Alex O, offensive lineman Cassidy Curtis.
Ogbong Bamiga.
Thank you. Yep. Defensive back Ahmad Dixon. That's a shocker. Running back Marion Grice.
Bit of a surprise.
That one did surprise me. Wide receiver John Harris. Defensive lineman Igbinosin. I'm going to go with that.
Mm-hmm.
Ike, yes.
You were right.
Linebacker Jeremiah Kosi.
Yep.
See, look at that. All right. Running back Kendall Lawrence. Linebacker Trent Matthews. Defensive back Solomon Means. You're welcome, Lonnie. Offensive lineman Darius Morris. Wide receiver Jarvis Turner. Wide receiver Ladarius Van Leer. And linebacker Lakeith Walls. So we talked a bit about it on the Periscope. Lawrence being a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, I thought so. I didn't think he was a lock, but I thought he'd make the team. He didn't have a bad camp, but I just think, you look at what Ladarius Perkins accomplished. Trayvon Van is someone who, can return and has success in the backfield. It was a bit of a surprise for Kendall Lawrence, I think, that he wasn't on the team. But at the same time, Jason Maas feels he has some running backs that do things a little bit better suited to their system. But he also said the door isn't closed on Kendall at all. If they run into an injury issue, he would love to come back or love to have him back. I felt bad for Kendall a little bit because when talking to him, I felt like this was a guy that grew up over the last year, which it was the worst. He basically hit rock bottom last year.
Yeah.
Even 2015 and 14 and 15, I just felt this wasn't a kid that was all that mature, and he just came in with a much better attitude, and he really loved being here. So
that's obvious. I mean, he came back, right?
Yeah.
He wanted to come back here.
And then the money thing is, I think, a factor too, because,
it's a cap era, right?
Ed Hervey signed him to a lot of money. And I think when you have a new GM and a new set of eyes, the variables change.
And don't forget that GM also brought in Trayvon Van, who he brought to two teams, right? He was in on it when they signed him in Ottawa,
right?
And he became available. We brought him here, so he obviously likes Trayvon Van. I don't think there's any doubt about that. The one thing I think it shows you is Kendall Lawrence's biggest strength to me is his versatility.
Sure.
That he can return, he can be the backup running back, he can be a receiver. That, to me, tells me what the Eskimos think about their depth all over, is that they don't need that versatile guy because they got enough already without him. So, and that allows them maybe to go a different route with that backup running back spot, with more of a pure running back guy like Trayvon Van.
Right.
Perkins, and maybe it's going to cause a bit of a predicament at the return game, but that's something they'll work through as the season goes along, I'm sure.
Yeah, who do you guys see? Well, we talked about this on the Periscope, but for those who haven't seen it, who do you think is going to be returning out of this?
That's a good question. I mean, as I said earlier, Jason Maas kind of hinted that it's going to be a few guys who are going to get a look there. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Brandon Zylstra to start. I don't know.
I hadn't even thought of that until you said it.
He did it in the playoff games last year, right? When they wanted to get Shakir Bell onto the roster. So he might be the guy. Gary Peters is available to do that and can do it. And then they got Ladarius Perkins. I don't think he did it in the preseason.
I don't remember him doing it in the preseason, but he's got speed and he's kind of that compact little guy.
Makes sense for
Trayvon Van can return. And, they kept KJ May, so that's a possibility too.
He never really impressed me as far as
and he's on the PR
returning.
too. So.
On the PR.
So again, the return game is a big question mark as far as the returner goes.
It almost seems more up in the air now than the beginning of camp.
Absolutely.
And it's been Kendall Lawrence was very good at it. Not spectacular, but very good at it in 14. Yes. 15, I think he took a step back at that position.
Especially the second half of the year.
Yeah. And I think that, when was the last time the Eskimos had that dynamic kick returner who
October?
Every time
pretty much.
Every time he was
Winston
back there.
October, not last October.
I was thinking players, not months, but if you want to go that way, that's fine. But it's been a while since they've had that impact returner, a guy who every time he's settling under the football, you're going, what's going to happen here? Right?
Yeah. You saw little flashes over the last couple of decades, but really...
But not consistent. Not consistent, you're right. So,
all right, well then...
The search is still on for that.
Exactly, yeah. Yep. This practice week is going to be interesting.
Put Odell back there.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
He would tell you he could do it, too.
Exactly.
Of course he would.
Yeah, kick off and return.
Yeah, exactly. All right, our PR. Kwabena Asare goes to the PR. Andrew Liu. Now, that one surprised me a little bit. But
his camp wasn't as good as you thought it was going to be. I was a little disappointed in Andrew Liu.
Do you think that might be just especially with the addition of Calhoun?
In the off-season, when Ed Hervey was around, the plan was to bring Calhoun in, and Andrew Liu was signed to be his backup. And we did see a little bit of that at safety and at the wide corner, but Andrew Liu just didn't have the type of training camp that you expected, so he's on the practice roster.
Well, he's still around, so we can build from there. Wide receiver Scott McDonnell, and then of course the two surprises of D'Anthony Batiste coming back and Kenny Stafford, which that one really kind of surprised me. But I was like, Kenny Stafford. I'm like, wow, that's
what I like about Kenny Stafford is the fact that he got cut in Winnipeg, and it's like the second time he's been cut. He got cut near the end of the season in Montreal, gets cut at the end of training camp in Winnipeg, and what's the first thing he does? Picks up the phone and phones the Eskimo and says, I want to come back here.
Yeah.
I'll go on the practice roster. Just put me on the practice roster. I want to come back. Because Edmonton's a place where he's had all his success in the Canadian Football League. I mean, he's been on this is his 5th year, I think. He's been on a different team every year.
Yeah.
He was in Calgary, then he was in Montreal, then he was in Edmonton, then he was back to Montreal, then he was in Winnipeg, and now he's in Edmonton. So 5 years, 6 teams. You got to find a home at some point, and you got to settle down. You can't be a nomad and be successful in the Canadian Football League. So he's got the right attitude. I talked to him today after practice, and he's very humbled by what's happened, and he knows he just wants to put the work in and earn himself a spot. He did kind of hint hey, don't worry, I won't be on the practice roster for very long.
Okay.
So he's still Kenny Stafford, which is great because you need that bravado from players, right?
Sure.
And I mean, that's what makes athletes stars, right? The fact that they're more confident in themselves at times than anyone else is. I mean, here's a guy, last 2 teams, his last 3 weeks in football, he's been cut by 2 different teams, right? You can go back to last year when he got cut in Montreal and then training camp here. Yeah. But yet he's still saying, I'm okay. I'm going to be okay.
Right.
I'm going to come in here and make a difference, which is great. I love that attitude.
Yeah.
So we'll see where he ends up. I mean, there's a pretty good lineup in front of him.
Yeah, no kidding.
You think about since he's gone, they've lost Darrell Walker, but they've added Duke Williams this year. They've added Brandon Zylstra. So and they still got Darius Bowman.
Too,
so there's still guys in front of him. So I think he's going to have to be patient. He's going to have to get a break to somehow get on the roster, but we'll see how it develops over the next little while. But he's still playing football, which is the most important thing to him and that he wanted to keep doing.
Yeah, awesome. Who else? So Zach Klein, obviously, which we talked about already on the PR. Mercy Maston.
Surprised me a little bit.
A little bit of surprise. He didn't have the greatest camp, I didn't think, but he's there. He can develop. Defensive lineman Mike Moore and wide receiver KJ May that we already talked about as far as doing possibly some returners. So jogging back just a little bit, I mean, we've gone through all the cuts. We've gone through the PR. You guys have had a little more experience now with Brock. What do you think of what he's done so far?
I think he's been pretty impressive. I mean, he didn't waste any time, right, Dave? He came in and he kind of. I think it's pretty unique. He's probably got his first general manager's job at the best time you could possibly get your first general manager's job. I mean, the work was done. The hay's in the barn, so to speak, right? He's just got to sell it now, right? If we keep this in farmer's terms. So he's had to tweak. He's had to sign some guys. But he went after it right away. I mean, like he went out and he got Forrest Hightower as soon as he became available. He ended up getting Arjun Colquhoun signed. It looks like he's got Nate Bahar signed, which who knows how that's going to play out at the end of the day, but he's got him signed. He hasn't been afraid to go out and make moves. He hasn't been timid whatsoever. I really like the way he's operated so far.
And his MO is, if you're a good player and you're available and we're interested in you, we're gonna sign you.
Right.
And that's how he drafted as well. We draft by best player available, and we will fit you in as we see fit. I think that's a different look to a general manager in a field that this organization's been used to in a while, is someone that, I see talent, I'm going to go after him, right? I'm going to be aggressive with it. And I think he's still, feeling out his new team as well. And,
sure.
The major decisions aren't going to come until 2018 offseason, but I still think he's made enough moves that you go, okay, you kind of understand what he's all about. So far it's been, I think, pretty impressive.
I like too whenever you talk to him, he always says, well, the people here are so great. Like he's about more. Like he is about the football team, obviously, and focusing on getting the right guys on there, but he's about more than that.
Right? Yeah, he's an Edmontonian. Like, I mean, he's bought a house, he's moving here, he's committed here. That's what I like about him too, is the fact that he's here and he's doing whatever he can do, football wise and community wise, which is great.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about the draft as well. I mean, the draft this year. I mean, Rob Ralph obviously had a huge hand in this year, but a very different kind of strategy than his predecessor had in Ed Hervey. I mean, you're talking about guys he drafted that knowing he wasn't going to see at least 1 year, maybe more. We've had 6 of our 8 draft picks have made this team so far, whether they're injured or on the 46.
After a pretty bad year last year,
right?
When you look at it, I mean,
we got Colquhoun finally.
He did get Colquhoun now, so that changes the look of last year's draft for sure.
Devon Smith
and Ed liked to go. He liked to go for the home run, right?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Which was there's nothing wrong with that when it works out, right? Yeah. But I mean, when was the last first pick in the draft? How many times has that first pick played on the team?
Danny Grew
hasn't started yet.
Yeah, hasn't started yet, but
Danny Grew, he's still pushing. But I mean, you go back and you got guys in the NFL still. I mean, even go back to Austin Pastor, right?
Yeah.
And he's not coming. We're never going to see him in the CFL, right?
No, so and who's that defensive lineman?
Stephen Charles.
Charles, right? Stephen
Charles,
who was their first pick in the second round, but he was their first pick that year, so he kind of fits into that category too. And I think Ed was pretty good at the big picture. I think that
and team building, personalities.
I think Sunderland is at least what I've thought anyway through the first look at him is he's looking at the little picture more at this stage of his development, because he came in, a month before training camp.
Right.
So I think he's more little picture, looking at more this year. We'll see next off season him tackle the bigger picture, which is the James Franklin things, which is going to be the Nate Bahar thing to try and, if they're going to try and re-sign him or whatever the case may be. So we'll get the big picture look at Brock Sunderland. And I'm not saying he's not doing big picture now, because all GMs do, but he just seems more attentive to the needs of 2017 than beyond right now, which is, I think, the way to go about it, especially when you come in that time of
exactly.
the year, right?
Yeah, you got to come in and make sure the tractor's working with the hay you have.
Yes.
There you go. See,
exactly.
I brought that around
Look
for
at you metaphors.
Oh, my goodness.
Welcome to the farm, man.
That was a farming reference.
I don't know how I pulled that off at all. Okay.
And it's big with Northern Alberta.
I find ways to attach people.
So we talked about Sunderland. Moving on to Jason Maas. This is going to be his first year where he's just the head coach. Mm-hmm. Have you noticed anything different in the last couple of weeks, last year and this year?
I think he's just more focused on the football team overall, where, when you would ask him about the defense, and he would say, well, I'm leaving that up to Mike Benavides. The special teams, I'm leaving that up to Corey McDermott. He's got an answer for every part of the football team now. And, it's obvious he has more time.
Sure.
He's not in in the offensive lab all the time, coming up with plays and schemes and that sort of thing. So he can leave the offensive meeting and leave that up to the new offensive coordinator, Carson Walsh. He can go in a defensive meeting and stay longer. Same thing with the special teams meeting. I just think it just allows him to be what a football head coach is all about, which is an administrator. So you have he's a CEO, you have your other, managers, and you lay down the expectation that you want, so, and then if they follow through, great. If they don't, then you talk to them about it, right? And you challenge them. So far, so good, I would say, because I think his knowledge of his football team, and not that his knowledge was bad last year, but I think it's a lot clearer to him this year because he's just got more time.
Yeah, I think the same thing, too. And again, I talked to him. I hate to keep plugging the coach's show, but I talked to him about
a great show
this week. Available at 630ched.com on the audio page. I addressed that with him, and he said, yeah, it was different. I think, he did it in the last game last year, but it was circumstances, right?
No kidding.
He said there was a definite adjustment for him to the 2 preseason games in not calling plays, and he did say it allowed him to be more of an evaluator in the preseason of live plays instead of worrying about the offense and what they're going to call when they get back out in the field. So he watched the defense with a little more of a keen eye and was able to make more evaluations live, which is important too.
Oh, yeah.
Besides watching it on film, which they do for hours and hours on end. I think it'll be a thing that will develop for him as the season goes along, how he acts and manages himself in game, because this is new to him, right?
Yeah.
I mean, for the last 3 years, he's been calling plays.
Yeah.
Right? And he's been focused on that. And now he's got more stuff to do as a head coach. He's got more time to do it now. And the best part about it, I think, from an Eskimo perspective, is he gets to go and walk over to the other side of the field during practice and talk to defensive players and work with defensive players, because an offensive mind is a great tool for a defensive player. Because you know what you want to do. Well, I can tell you how I'm going to get around what you're going to do, right? So he can definitely be a help with the defense and on special teams, so he can take part in stuff in practice and in meetings, more so than he was able to do last year, because he was running the offense.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think Carson Walsh is really a drop-off.
Well, that's what you have to say, too,
because I think he runs the offense very well.
Jason Maas would not be able to do this if he didn't have the trust and the confidence in Carson Walsh to handle the play calling.
Yep. Absolutely. And honestly, I think we've kind of focused on it. I'm not worried about the offense at all for this year.
No.
I am a little worried right now about is the defense going to be the defense we saw at the beginning of last year, or is it going to be the defense we saw at the end of last year, which was more effective? Mm-hmm. What do you guys think as far as that secondary?
Well, it's still the weak link of the defense, and when I say that, I still think they're a better group than they were last year, because I think the depth is better. Injuries could factor in. Now, Marcel Young is back. It looks like he'll play the wide corner, but we'll see what happens there. But you got Johnny Adams on the short side. You got Gary Peters, who, the matchup against Emmanuel Arsenault this weekend will be very interesting.
Yes,
very.
I think Gary Peters is someone that can definitely play that physical brand of, defensive back that you need, where Marcel Young couldn't do that.
Okay.
And you still got Neil King at safety. Brandon Thompson's no problem there. It's how Marcel Young plays on the wide side. And I think that gives Marcel Young a chance to kind of see the defense or see the offense a little bit more, because he's back away from he's backing away from the ball and he has more time to react. I didn't like Marcel Young's year last year, or in fact the year before. I don't think he's not a dumb player. He's a very smart player. But sometimes I wondered if he lacks the physical skills to play that tough man-to-man coverage and get the jam on the receivers that you need to, because I thought too many times he was beat flat out.
Yes.
Where I think Gary Peters has a chance because he's a little bit more physical.
Okay.
So that's interesting. But, if that doesn't work out, then you got Forrest Hightower around, who's getting healthier.
Yeah.
I don't know when we're going to see him. And then you got Arjun Calhoun, who's a bit of a wild card right now, because I didn't think his preseason was very good. But, they've invested a lot in him. So, they're definitely going to try and see if he can work out eventually, maybe be a ratio changer. But I think the secondary is better than it was last year.
Well, and there was actually a report. They had an interview with Jordan Hoover. Right in that, he said, "Well, I'm coming on to back up Colquhoun on the wide corner," and I'm like, "Wait a minute, what?"
To me,
I didn't think Arjun got the starting position.
That's what I'm watching for. Yeah. I'm waiting to see. I like what they've done. I like the changes they made and the guys they've added. But at some point this season, and remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint, right?
Absolutely.
And sometime at the end, before we get to the end of this marathon, I believe that Forrest Hightower and Arjun Colquhoun will probably play factors in that defensive backfield at some point. Yeah. I mean, Hightower, he was good in Ottawa. He spent time.
He was a defensive half in Ottawa.
Yeah, yes. He spent time in the NFL with New Orleans, during the offseason at their summer camps. So he's a good football player. And Colquhoun is just, I think maybe pro football slapped him in the face a little bit when he got to training camp.
Right.
But he's a good football player, and he got better as they went along, and he's just going to improve as time goes by. So I think at some point those two are going to factor into that defensive backfield in some way, shape, or form. And I don't know if the alignment we're going to have week 1 is going to be the same as we're going to have week 14.
Right. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
I think as well. I mean, I think Dave talked about that Colquhoun, it might have been during Fan Day, Colquhoun is pro-ready. I mean, he's definitely a rookie. But there's a lot of stuff in camp I liked. We were watching him, I don't know, it was in the first week of camp. And they moved him to safety, and he was directing traffic back there, which is something for a rookie you don't see very often.
No. And I think, he's got the head knowledge for sure, and the football IQ is very high. It's just, the physical skills that you need to play the CFL game, I think they're there.
Right.
He's an American-Canadian who...
With the waggle especially, you've got to be very fast.
He's an American-Canadian who started 5 years on the corner at Michigan State.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's no slouch.
No. If
you're not good, you don't do that. Right?
No, exactly. So, But it's almost like going back to a game that he didn't, because he's played a different game for 5 years, right?
Yeah, and I talked to him about that. Yeah. He said he hadn't played Canadian football since high school.
Yeah.
Right? So that's... Yeah. For you and me, it's just long ago. For him, it's like 7 or 8 years, right? So, and you know what? He won the Ontario Championship that year, so he was a good player and a good team. So he'll pick it up for sure. I don't think there's any doubt about that. They're not the same kind of player, but think to Winnipeg and Taylor Loeffler.
Sure. Yes.
And how he started as a backup, and then next thing you know, he's their nominee for Rookie of the Year. He came in week 6, right?
Yeah.
Started against the Eskimos in that first game when the Bombers made all those changes and put Nichols in at quarterback, and he became an impact player. Mm-hmm. Hits like a truck. I don't think Colquhoun's that kind of player, but he could have that kind of impact as the season goes along.
But he could have the shutdown ability. Yeah. Maybe not the hitting ability, but the shutdown ability.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? He's got the speed and he's got the smarts. So
when you're on the corner, you're not worried about hitting. You're worried about can you
knocking it down. Yeah. Making sure they don't throw your way. And if they do, you're taking it from them. Right. Yep. That's what his role is.
He gets that position, and all of a sudden, maybe we have 4 starting import receivers.
There you go, Mike.
And then we're talking. Maybe Bryant Mitchell's the 5th guy that rotates in there.
Yep.
And you've got Duke Williams, along with Hazelton and Bowman and Zylstra.
I will say overall, this roster has a lot more flexibility than it did a year ago.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's an excellent assessment.
I'm more confident this year than I was a year ago today.
Excellent. Well, really?
Yeah.
Wow,
What did Bodog had 10 wins for the over-under?
Yeah, 10.5.
Do you think? What do you think?
I was just going to say it's prognostication time.
I don't see him being under 10.
Okay.
I can see him being 10-8 like last year, but a better 10-8, like a better team that finishes 10-8. The West is going to be so tough this year.
It's going to be very, very tough.
I just don't understand how anyone's going to come out of the West because it's just like you can make a case. Saskatchewan's up in the air. Who knows?
Yeah.
Right?
They're the wild card. Yeah.
But I mean,
you
could make a case for all 4 teams finishing first. Really, I mean, you'd have to stretch it a little bit on some, but I mean, they're good teams.
It's going to be hard pressed to get Calgary to 4th, but
yeah, exactly, hard pressed.
Really,
I'd like to.
The most important games this year are going to be divisional games.
Yeah,
because you're going to have to chew up the East, and you're going to have to win the division by beating the division.
Well, and I still think Calgary's the class of the West still, and the league. I will give the Lions the benefit of the doubt.
Yes.
They are right there as well. And I'll say the Eskimos finish 11-7, which will be good for third.
Okay.
And I will say the Lions finish 12-6, and I'll say the Stampeders finish 13-5.
Sounds about
and
right.
I think the Riders are out.
Okay.
And
Winnipeg.
Winnipeg is, I think they're 8-10 and 9-9 because
and crossing over.
Because and the East will be
the East
interesting again.
Yeah.
Yeah, the East. But, Winnipeg, a lot of people are saying Winnipeg is going to win the West. Winnipeg is going to go to the Grey Cup. And I go, really? That's
they have
interesting.
Tickets?
No.
Yeah. First of all, just quickly here, plus 29 turnover ratio, is that going to happen again?
No.
Consider Calgary was plus 19, which is out of this world.
Yeah. Yes.
That's not going to happen again. And as much as I really like and enjoy watching Matt Nichols play, the way he plays quarterback, there's a lot of things that has to go right in that offense for them to score more. Because even though they had the highest turnover ratio last season and turned those turnovers into points, they had the highest points off turnovers. They were still 6th in offense.
Yeah.
They were still 6th in passing, 5th in rushing. They were near the bottom in touchdowns and scoring. So I'm not convinced this is a smoke and mirror show. That's my opinion.
Okay.
Too many field goals.
Now, see, that one I would completely agree with. There lots of field goals, not a lot of
They didn't punch
touchdowns.
the ball in enough. They had a lot of chances on the turnovers, and they turned a possible 7 into 3 too often.
Right.
And that'll come back to bite them.
It'll be interesting this year. So you've got the Eskimos 10-8 in third then, or
I think in third.
It?
Yeah, I think in third. They got a chance for second. Again, it depends on. I mean, the one thing that gives them a good chance for second is they played BC 3 times this year. Right, twice there and once here. So if BC's the team that everyone's thinking for second place, which I think everybody is, then they got a chance. If you win 2 of those 3, you're going to finish second. Right.
Right. Yep.
So that an opportunity for second, probably third. 10 wins, I think, is a good year. And again, I'm going to stress 10-8 like last year, but a better 10-8 if that makes sense. I mean, they'll be more of a threat going into the playoffs at 10-8, I think, this year than they would have been last year.
Okay.
In my mind. So, and I got Calgary first. You got to give them first until they don't have it anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
Be the best. You got to beat the best.
Yeah.
Woo!
I was waiting for Ric Flair somewhere.
Good Lord.
And BC, Edmonton, Winnipeg, and Saskatchewan.
Okay, Superfan?
Yeah, I think that's the order that I've seen most, and I agree with it. I think that Winnipeg you have a full year of Matt Nichols now. We'll see. He's gone through the full training camp. But like you said, I mean, they were middle of the pack at best in offense last year, and I don't really see them improving. And the defense, just like in hockey when you're talking about your shooting percentage being so high, it's not sustainable. Same with that interception ratio.
Okay.
Ratio.
Fair enough. I've got it the same order: Calgary, BC, Edmonton, Winnipeg, Saskatchewan. But I've got Edmonton and Winnipeg both at 10-8, with Edmonton winning the season series. So, and that's why we end up finishing third. Right. Now, I did that little setup about a month ago. That's before I knew who was actually going to be on the team, and I'm not changing it. I thought I might be looking at it again and changing it, but I kind of like the way that's sitting. The only one actually that I really questioned is whether or not I would flip Calgary and BC, because I think BC's defense might be a little better than some people are giving them credit
Might
for.
be right. I just don't think there's enough data there, enough to convince me that BC's better than Calgary.
Right.
They haven't proved it yet.
Right.
When teams are close, it always comes down to me saying who's got the best quarterback.
True.
Yeah, and
Jennings
that's Calgary.
at this
Out
point.
of those two, right now, anyway. Might be
those-
different
yes.
later, but
Yeah,
right
maybe.
now, it's Bo Levi Mitchell over Jennings.
I see all over Twitter, Bo Levi Mitchell is not a good quarterback. There's so many better quarterbacks than him. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Maybe he doesn't have the big playability that Jennings
He
have
gets
or
the
Mike
ball
Riley.
out so fast.
He is the master technician.
Yes.
And yes, he can kill you deep.
Yeah.
He can kill you short, intermediate.
He certainly killed us in the Labor Day game.
Sure did.
Yeah.
So I think it's because Eskimo fans don't like Calgary and sick of losing to them, and they can't stand Bo Levi Mitchell because he's that good. But he's that
and
good. Mike Riley's 1A, and John Jennings might be 1C. That's how close it is.
That's probably a good way to put
Yep.
it. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back with some CFL news and our pick'em.
This is Tony Washington of your 2015 Grey Cup champions, Edmonton Eskimos, and you're listening to the Eskimo Empire Podcast. Go Esk!
Hey guys, do you know there's even more ways to interact with the Empire online? What? That's right. You can find us on Twitter at EskEmpirePod, on Facebook under the Eskimo Empire Podcast group, on Instagram at EskEmpirePod, and you can also follow us on YouTube under our channel, the Eskimo Empire Podcast. Now, I know you guys like that Eskimo history segment, right? Yeah! You can follow more of that information at Esk's History on Twitter, and you can find it on This Day in Esk's History on Facebook. Don't forget to share, okay? Okay! Thanks so much for listening. Let's get back to the show.
Patreon, patreon.com/EskEmpirePod.
Hey, thanks for helping out the show. Big shout out to our Hall of Famers this week, Jedi, Joe, and Hippie, as always. And as the season is starting, I did want to give shout outs as well to John, Bill, Shelley, Joe, and our new patron, Travis. So that is fantastic.
Yeah, so you can join the club as a draft pick. It's just $2 a month. That allows you to have access to our full-length interviews, as well as joining the conversations. The rookie level is $5 a month, which gets you all of that, plus the bonus episodes once a month. So every little bit helps, and we definitely appreciate all the support.
Yeah, and the bonus episode this month is us talking with Uncle BD and Doug all about the Esks by the numbers that we did in the off season and breaking that down by the number. It was a lot of fun. And of course, if you're at the draft pick level, you'll get the full interview that we did tonight with Dave and Morley because it's amazing. Okay. Now, of course, the show is free every week. Even just subscribing, listening, reviewing, sharing, those are all super helpful. But like Mike said, a couple bucks a month, quick set it and forget it, goes a long way, kind of helps us to improve the show. And this month it's going to help with getting us some Earthquaku t-shirts available to you guys. So let's keep going with that. Watch for that announcement very soon. So a couple of CFL news notes that I wanted to talk about with you guys, kind of some of the cuts across the league and some of those ones that kind of stood out for me. Of course, the big one, well, let me rephrase. This isn't really a surprise except for the fact of the way the trade went down. Drew Willie is cut from the Toronto Argonauts.
I thought they'd at least try.
That's what I thought too. That's why
I thought they'd at least try because you have Tressman, the quarterback whisperer. Yeah. And what? I thought he was the guy, if anyone was going to be able to help, he would be the guy, right?
Yeah.
And maybe he just said, can't do it.
Can't
do it. I mean, what a horrible chapter in Argo history this turns out to be.
Oh, my, yes.
Jim Barker traded for a pretty good quarterback a few years ago. And then he and didn't really give up much, right?
Nope.
And then gave up a whole schwack for a quarterback that got cut 6 months later.
Best joke I saw on Twitter, some guy saying Steven Giles is upset somewhere because now he's not the answer to a trivia question. So it's that one that blows my mind.
Funny, you and I had made eye contact during the Eskimos history segment.
Yes,
when Mike was talking about the worst
trade,
maybe the worst trade. We both looked at each other and mouthed the words Drew Willie.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, you think first overall pick?
Yes.
And the starting defensive back who tied for the league lead in interceptions.
Who was an all-star.
That's a pretty good return.
Still no Nomri Kwong, though.
True.
For a guy that wasn't even on your roster.
Yeah, that's
70 yards and 2 touchdowns.
All right, you win, Mike. Okay, you win. Happy. Yours is the worst trade.
And then Bass for Tommy Scott. That was last week.
That's another good one, too. Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, Drew really of the last 10 years. That's definitely...
It didn't hurt Calgary. That's my main that's my criteria. If it hurts Calgary, it's automatically the best.
Okay, well, that makes sense now.
That's perfect. I like that, to have that little tag on the end. The Vince Young era comes to an end in Saskatchewan. Is anyone
Who had
surprised?
no games in the pool?
Yeah.
I did.
You did?
I did, too.
Didn't most everybody?
And then as soon as he leaves practice the one day, you go, all right, wheels are in motion to get this over with.
Yeah.
They've got an exit plan here. It's too bad because I would like to see them play.
Oh, yeah,
it would have been cool
play.
to see Vince Young playing in the Canadian Football League, and he was such an athletic guy that he's kind of tailor-made for this league. You know, big and strong and quick.
5 years
and
ago, it
fast.
would have been amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But he's 34 years old, hasn't played in 6 years.
Yeah.
You know, so it just I didn't.
It didn't add up.
I didn't see it working out at all, and it pretty much worked out the way I thought it might.
I mean, yeah, he was in shape, and Chris Jones kept saying, well, he's been working out. He's been active. Well, that's great. He hasn't been in a football camp in 3 years. He hasn't played really in 6 years.
Yeah.
And to expect him to come out after one mini camp and to come into camp and do full reps and run like he hasn't run before. This isn't pickup basketball. This is pro football. And, you know, the fact that he tore his hamstring, which is, that's terrible. I've had a pulled hamstring for over a year, and that hurt. I can't imagine what a tear is like. But it makes no sense. It made no sense to keep him. Because why do you want that circus around him? Mm-hmm. And I think for Vince Young as well, why don't I just go home, rehab this? The riders are paying for it anyway, and be done with it.
And I want to say full credit to him for trying, because I think, you know, everyone kind of knocks him a little bit, but I mean, the guy likes to play football. It's pretty obvious, or you wouldn't go through this, right? So I think it's great that he gave it a chance, and for him at least, it's closure, right? He knows that it's over. I mean, same thing with Michael Jordan when he came back. Everyone was criticizing him for it, and it's like, maybe he just likes to play basketball, right? You know, Vince Young probably just wants to play football again. He tried it, couldn't do it, so now he's going to go on with his life.
The variables were just so stacked against
I noticed this week that you know, everyone's been talking about him being injured and everything, right? I guess this week Chris Jones called him retired. So
it's over.
Maybe the book has closed completely.
I'm sorry, but when you've got Kevin Glenn as your backup, you know the starter's getting injured. So, I mean, that's just the rule, isn't it?
Back to life.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, come on.
I totally forgot about that.
I don't think Kevin Glenn was ever the backup to this training camp. Though.
No, it's true.
It's true. We were so waiting for that fun little trivia fact. Next one for me, Javon Johnson, released out of Montreal, and then lands in
Saskatchewan.
Saskatown.
In
Means he's
Saskatchewan.
going to retire.
On the practice roster. Yeah, he should be retiring in the next couple of weeks.
I'm always amazed at how teams will go out and sign guys in the offseason with a little bit of fanfare and then cut them at the end of training camp.
Yeah.
Which is what, Javon Johnson kind of had a bit of a contract squabble, I don't know, with the Owls. But he ended up re-signing there, and then, boom, he's gone.
Yeah, exactly.
The CFL is a strange league that way. I think it's the only league in the world where you can, at one point or another, cut your best player.
Yeah, sure.
You know, or the best player at what he does. You know, and we saw that in Edmonton this year with Mike Miller.
Yeah.
Right? Best special teams player in the league. They, financial reasons, whatever the case may be, they cut him. He doesn't know. I talked to him in Winnipeg, and he didn't understand the explanation either, but it happened, right? And it happens in the CFL that good players get cut. Simple as that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, one that's a little bit closer to home, I guess, to us, Shakir Bell, as Pin Bell as we call him, although he just did not have a good
2 fumbles
camp.
in the last game, right?
Didn't help.
The opening kickoff, right? I think. So
did not help. That's for sure.
Well, and that's where, when you look at Shakir Bell as a returner and you go, that's an awful risk, because he has really no history of returning except for 2 playoff games last year, right? Which is the main reason why he wasn't on the roster last year with John White. Yeah. And then finally Jason Maas said, well, to protect John White, we're going to put Shakir Bell on. But I thought, first of all, I was surprised he wasn't signed until very late in the offseason, but I think Shakir played his cards, played his hand, and he lost, right? Because he thought, well, okay, I'm going to hit free agency.
Be a starter, yeah.
And he's sitting there waiting, going, okay, someone sign me. Everyone spends money like crazy on day one, and no one has any money left.
Right.
So, you know.
And there's no one really in need of a running back.
No.
I mean, around the league, usually there's one team that's got an opening, but
I thought he would end up in Toronto.
You look around, I guess.
I figured just because, I mean, his name completely escapes me now.
Brandon Whitaker?
Brandon Whitaker. Yeah, they have Brandon Whitaker, but he wasn't signed either at the time. And so I thought for sure, younger option, smaller, little fiery guy. I figured he'd end up there.
Don't forget who's coaching in Toronto, though. And, you know, Whitaker comes from Montreal as well, right? Yeah. So Trestman knows him pretty well. So I think, though, Shakir Bell's probably, if you just go on what guys accomplished last year, he's probably at the top of the list when a running back goes down this season, that he'll be signed by somebody.
Yep.
I would think.
I don't think it would be us, though. I mean, we've got Trayvon Van, Ladarius Perkins, who've been playing all preseason. So it's too bad. I thought he would probably do well in Ottawa with the rotation they tend to do at running back. It's going to, save wear and tear on his body. I thought he'd probably do well there. But
they're pretty high on Powell, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
They like Powell a lot.
With their history, and we even said that with Janin, though, right? Their running backs always get injured, so he might get called back still. He might be the first on that list as well. Mm-hmm. Troy Gurley as well, out of Ottawa, which is not terribly surprising.
No, not really.
Just kind of a name again that we've heard a lot of as of late. Dominique Ellis, kind of interesting.
He was really good in Montreal for one season, and then, I was surprised when the Alouettes cut him last year.
Yeah.
They knew what they were doing. Jim Pop did. He signs with the Hamilton Tiger Cats. I thought that was going to be a tremendous signing. Didn't work out. He wasn't. He was pretty subpar.
Yeah, no kidding. And then I just want to touch on this, the Anthony Allen tweets.
Oh, come on. Like
you had to leave a family dinner.
Like you had
are you the only one that has to leave their family? Like, don't act like that.
I do understand a little bit, because he wasn't in camp. They called him and said, "We want you."
There is a point.
They didn't say, "Come up, you have a job."
He did quit his job. He did unenroll, de-enroll. He did drop out of school or whatever you want to get for this year, and he had to leave in the middle of a family meal.
Yes,
I'm kind of surprised that I don't. Was he that bad? I don't know.
Well, and that's the thing. We don't know all the tape and all those other things.
Everybody appears to be bad by looking at the games, but
and we don't know what was said. Did Chris Jones say, "Come up here, you have a legitimate shot to make the team," or just come up here and see what happens? Right. Now, if he implied a job was realistic, then that was the wrong thing to do.
Right.
So, but if it was just come up here, compete, see what happens.
He's been a pretty good back in this league for the last couple of years.
Yeah. So again, he might be on the list if somebody's getting hurt somewhere down the road.
But in some way, I'm like, I know you're upset, but don't act like you're the only one that has to come up and make sacrifices.
And again, you're saying Shakir Bell might be the first guy called back. Anthony Allen had a pretty good year last year too, but
now
you look at the response and you think, okay,
now he's angry.
I'm going to go with Bell first because he might be less of a distraction, less of a I don't know.
Right. Yeah, exactly. All of those things, right? Yeah. All right. Okay, well, we have the game this week, of course, against the BC Lions. Let's talk quickly about that. Some of the keys to the game for the Eskimos, and we'll start with you, Mr. Campbell.
I think you got to slow down that offense somehow. You got to get pressure.
Easy.
Yeah, sure. Get pressure on John Jennings. And also, you got to stop Jeremiah Johnson in the run game. And I remember a game we did last year in October, and Johnson just ran roughshod over the defense, which was overall a pretty good run defense last year. But you got to stop that high octane offense, and that receiving core is pretty good with Arsenault and Burnham and others as well. So I think you got to contain that offense.
All right, fair enough.
I think it'll be a great test for the Eskimos defense right out of the hop, stopping the run and those receivers. A lot of people are saying BC is going to have the best receiving core in the league. Has yet to play out, but you can't argue too much with it right now with the guys they have. Arsenault is just a truck, right? He's just big and strong, and he's everything you want in a receiver. He never drops the ball, and when he gets it, he gets yak yards. He's going to be a test. I think the other test is going to be on the O-line, because that's a pretty ferocious front four, front seven that the BC Lions have. So it'll be a test on the O-line too. So it won't be an easy night in Vancouver.
Definitely not. Superfan.
I think that we need to have our special teams give us field position. It's going to be very tough as it is if they're going to be starting from the 40, and then from our side, we need to not be in the shadow of our goalposts whenever we get the ball back. So it's going to be tough enough as it is. So the more help we can give our offense and our defense, the better.
Yeah, I would agree. And I would agree with everything you guys said. I would also then say that the offense, this is their time. They got to carry this team right now.
Yeah.
They got to be putting points on the board and long drives, keeping that defense fresh, especially keeping BC's offense off the field by having hours on it. I think that's going to be a huge part of this game, and how they not only find ways to score points, but control the ball. And if we're seeing a lot of 2 and outs on the Edmonton side, that's going to be a long night for the Eskimos.
I think one concern, and I don't know if it's a big concern, but it's just a concern, is the first team offense didn't play very well in the first game against the Stampeders. Got better, I think, near the end, but then they didn't play at all against Winnipeg. So, how do they come out? And I think that's where John White can really settle things down. So I think run the damn ball.
Nice. I was hoping you would say that. That's perfect. Which players are we watching, Superfan? I'll start with you this time.
Oof, I'm going to be. I think I'm going to be watching our Wilbacks position. That's going to be really important. Anyone on defense is going to be so important against the BC Lions. But I want to see if Konar and Blair Smith can really do something to stop that run game.
John White. With Dave on that one, John White. I think he's going to, I think to a certain extent in some games he's going to be, as John White goes, so go the Eskimos offensively. He's not going to be the big yardage guy every night, but he's going to be the guy who will, when you're struggling, give him the ball and let him get a couple of first downs, let him get the rhythm going and let the team kind of get going offensively. I think he'll be a key, especially if they get into trouble offensively. And I'm with Mike. I'm really excited to see Adam Konar. I think he's had a really good camp. Yeah. I think that his camp changed on day 2, right?
Yeah.
As much as guys always say, I came to camp looking to be the starter, which is great, but they had a starter until he went down.
Yeah.
And when Greenwood went down, it opened the door, and he just kicked it in. Yeah. So he had a really good camp. So I'm looking forward to seeing him play. It's going to be a big night for him, too, back at home. And his dad's a former Lion. And I was talking to Adam today, and his dad's a season ticket holder for BC still since he played. He played like 9 years with them, right? And he's going to have a lot of family and friends there. So it's a big night for him.
Dave.
Euclid Cummings.
Oh, yeah.
Excellent choice.
Interior D-line, and I miss Eddie Steele a lot. Quality Canadian. They upgraded their interior with Euclid Cummings, and talked to Armando Sewell about it, and he says, best player I've played besides since Ted Laurent.
Really?
And big beast. So,
Armando was bench pressing Dave at the time.
Which is about right. Quite the feat, but Mondo can do it.
Man, he's strong.
Yeah.
Some of the videos he put out on Twitter,
crazy.
Lifting. It was like virtually lifting 2 offensive linemen at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Let's go to abandoned parking lots and throw cars around.
Yeah, 600 pounds plus, right? I'm excited to see those 2 guys, and Dave talked about Cummings. Those 2 guys really collapse the pocket, and I think because of those 2 guys, I think Willis and Hunt and Howard could have really good numbers this year, because the quarterback's going to be running away from those guys, and a lot of times right into the arms of the other
guys.
Willis.
Yeah,
so,
that's
somersaults for everybody, I say.
Yay, I like that. Yeah, it's right in the intro, actually. I really like that. So I am just changing gears just a little bit. I'm going to be watching Sean White in this game, because this is the first official game that he's going to be doing all 3 phases. I'm curious to see at home for him. Yes, exactly. But I'm just curious to see how that plays out. I mean, I'm curious to see how it plays out over the whole year. Yeah. But I want to see how that plays in a game when they are, obviously up against this high-powered type team, and what kind of field position is the other team getting, and how is Sean doing with field goals, all those things, when he's got all of these other things going on at the same time. So I'm just curious to watch and see how that plays out.
Yeah, and I think an encouraging stat from the Winnipeg game was Sean White's punt average was 42, his net was 38, so the coverage was much better. Much more improved. And there's a lot of people like to rail on the defense last year. The worst phase was special teams.
By a mile.
It's not even close.
Yeah, so. I would agree. Yeah, for sure.
And don't forget now, this will be the first game for him doing all three, but it'll also be the first game where he hasn't been kicking for 2 hours every day at practice.
Right.
Where he's going to have some rest. He's had some days off now. His leg was really fatigued during training camp because he was trying to get into a rhythm and trying to do his thing, and he kicked more this training camp than he has ever kicked at a training camp. So the leg was fatigued a little bit. This will also be the first game where he'll have the same center, the same long snapper, the same holder for every field goal attempt, right?
Yes.
Because he didn't have that during the preseason games. They were putting Casey Chin in at times. And
right.
I don't mean it was Chin's fault. I just mean it's different, right?
Rhythm.
Yeah. Nobody likes changes. Athletes are fellows of routine, right?
Yes.
They like everything the same all the time. So you change one thing and they're thinking about it. So it sets them off a little bit. So I think that's going to make a difference too. Sean White's a good kicker.
Oh, he is.
He's
Absolutely.
a good football player.
Yeah.
And sadly, he set the bar pretty high last year in field goals.
No kidding.
93, over 93%. I don't know if he's going to get to 93% this year, but it won't be because he's punting. It'll be because he kicked 93% last year,
right.
Which is hard to get to.
That's astronomical.
Yeah.
And it's a good interview.
And it's a good interview. You're exactly right.
You're catching on, Mike. You got it. You got it down.
We got this down already. All right. Well, that leads right in then to our pick'em, our first official pick'em for the season. Of course, join the group on CFL Pick'em, and I've posted the link a few times. We'll keep doing that, so join in and have a little fun with us. So let's start with the game we were just talking about, Edmonton versus BC. Who do you got in the game? We'll start with you, Dave.
I'm going to call the mild upset. The Eskimos win.
All right. Wow.
If you ask me every week, it's my job to say the Eskimos are going to win.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Superfan.
I think everyone's calling a BC win for this one, but I'm seeing the point spread isn't very big. I think it's 3.5% points. So
yeah, I think you're right.
I mean, that's basically home field advantage at that point. So yeah, I could easily see the Eskimos winning this one. So I'm going to go with the other gentleman and say
attaboy.
All right. Well,
Eskimo win.
I have a feeling this is going to be a high scoring affair, and I have a feeling it's going to come right down to the end, and I think the Eskimos are going to just come up just a touch short. When I first did the planning for the season back when I was writing down every game, I had the Eskimos losing this first one. Now, do I think that's going to trigger something? Yes, because I think it is going to be close and it's going to be an amazing battle. And of course, I want to be wrong, but I think that BC squeaks this one out at home for the home opener. All right, our next one is Saskatchewan versus Montreal. Morley, who do you have in that one?
I'm going with Montreal. I'm going to call Darian Durant with a big game. Just because he can.
Yeah.
Although it could be one of those situations where he's so geeked up to shove it down their throats that he might
get hurt.
Give it to them instead, right? He's anxious to prove that they were wrong to get rid of him. I'm sure he wanted to stay there. They didn't want to keep him. That's never a good mix. Yeah. And to play week one is, it's kind of a neat setup. But I think Montreal's going to win. Although I don't like what the Alouettes have done recently. I'm baffled at the Bear Woods move.
Yes.
They were a really good defense, and I thought their defense would help them win more games than most people thought. But I don't think they're that good of a defense anymore. So we'll see how it plays out. But I'll take Montreal in week one.
Okay, Superfan.
Oh, the watermelons are going to implode after this game. Having Durant facing his former team, the schedule makers got it right. I'm still not convinced about Saskatchewan. They had a horrible preseason. I mean, I know it doesn't matter about the score, but they just did not look right at all in any of the games I saw. So, yeah, it's going to be a Montreal win for sure.
Okay, Dave.
I look at the Riders, and I'm looking to their defense, and I'm saying I like some pieces of their defense. I do not like their defense as a whole.
Okay.
And my buddy Dave Dawson loves to just champion the Riders' defense. I got a bug, Dave. And I go, buddy, I think you need to see your oculist. I think Darian Durant has not a field day, but has some success against the Riders' defense. So I think that's the difference. Montreal wins.
All right. Well, we're going to have our first sweep of the season. I'm also going to say Montreal pulls this one off at home.
Montreal.
They'll probably lose now that I all said that. Yeah, exactly. All right. Next one, Calgary versus Ottawa, the Grey Cup rematch in Ottawa.
Yeah, I think Calgary takes this one for sure. They've got a lot to prove after that Grey Cup. They are, as Dave said earlier, I think the class of the league still. And it's early in the season. I think they'll take it.
All right.
I'm saying Calgary's going to sweep that series.
Okay.
Because they play in Calgary the next week, right?
That's right.
And I think, and again, the Stampeders have gone out of their way to tell you that they've forgotten about last year and this has nothing to do with it. They're lying. I think they're very much they want to win, and it doesn't mean anything. And it's not, everyone's going to call it a Grey Cup rematch. It's not, because it's not the Grey Cup. It doesn't really matter.
There's
teams
not a
are different,
trophy
players
at
are
the
different. I like the idea of the two teams in the Grey Cup playing. It's never it's a win-win situation for the team that lost the game, because they're on the road. They lost the last time they played, whatever. But it's the home team has a tougher time, because everyone's saying you got to defend almost, right? Which is it's neat, but when it comes game time, it usually kind of fizzles out. But I'm taking Calgary to win it. I'm concerned about Ottawa this year.
Me too. Now, yeah absolutely, yes.
I'll go Stampeders. I echo what a lot of Morley said. I think in the Grey Cup rematch scenario, it's hard for the home team.
I told you everyone would call it the Grey Cup rematch, didn't I? Yeah. 30 seconds later.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like you know him or something.
Damn it! Damn it! Anyway, I just think the scenario is not good for the Red Blacks. And just a quick point. A lot of people really sing the praises of Trevor Harris. And I like Trevor Harris, but Trevor Harris has never been able to be consistent.
Yeah.
Starts off strong, tails off. Can he prove that he can stay more consistent?
Absolutely.
But Calgary wins.
I'm going with Calgary as well. And the same thing, I'm a little worried about Ottawa's defense with all of the changes. And their offense, although will still be good, I think, with Harris, I don't think it's the same as what it was, especially with the loss of Ernest Jackson. I think that's a huge blow. I'll be interested to see how those guys play. But I think even at home, I think Calgary's got something to prove, and quite the team right now. So I think they're going to take that one. Last one, Hamilton versus Toronto in Toronto. I guess I have to go first on this one.
You do.
So I've got Hamilton winning this one. I think that Zach Collaros comes out healthy, having a full training camp, gets a chance to gun it downfield to Terrence Tolliver and Tasker and who's your daddy? Is that what I'm supposed to say?
Yes.
And I do think that the Hamilton defense is going to be a bit of a work in progress, but they've got the right guys there to have a good enough defense. So I'm going to give this one to Hamilton.
Nice. I actually think this will be an upset. I think Toronto is going to take this one.
Oh, wow.
We've got a rebuilt secondary in Hamilton. I think no one's really giving Toronto much of a chance, but when you have someone like Trestman as your coach, you always have a chance, I think. And so I think it'll be a bit of an upset.
All right.
I think Toronto's going to be the surprise team in the league this year.
All right.
I'm calling for the Argos, maybe even finish first in the East.
Really?
I think that they're going to be a lot better than people think. I may be a little boisterous on finishing first, but I think they're going to be much better than people think. If Ricky Ray gets hurt, then forget it, right?
Yes.
But if he's healthy, he's got a pretty good group of receivers, starting with S.J. Green, who is one of the best when he's been healthy. So we'll see how it plays out, but I think Toronto's going to be a much better team this year than people think.
If Ricky Ray gets hurt, how many calls does Brock Sunderland get?
Several.
Yeah.
Several. He might have already got some.
He might have, possibly.
Andrew said we're not talking about it anymore.
They have, who else do they have?
I said this is the last show. Yeah.
Who's a back?
Fajardo.
Cody Fajardo. And Jeff Matthews.
Who was started against the Eskimos last year, right?
Yep.
And threw about 4 interceptions.
4 picks or something. Yeah, that's quite a bit. Yeah. All right, Dave.
I have this feeling it's going to be the worst game of the week. I don't know why.
I can't disagree.
And that being said, I'll say the Argos will win. They'll find a way to squeak past this one.
All by myself on this one.
Yeah,
when I win next week, I'm going to be laughing. You understand that?
Anyway,
laugh it up.
One receiver I want to bring up that I'm really excited about that the Argos acquired for Peter Diakowski when they sent him to the Riders, Armonte Edwards. I'm really excited about this receiver. So the receiving core of the Argos isn't as bad as first thought. Jimmy Ralph made the team, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Way to go.
Good for him.
Ex-U of A Golden Bear. But I just got a feeling this game is not going to be very fun to watch, but I think the Argos will win.
All right, fair enough. On that same note, make sure you join our CFL Fantasy as well. All right, well, gentlemen, thank you so much for coming down and being a part of this. We love having you here and chatting football with you guys. Tell everyone where they can find you on Twitter and all those other fun things.
Well, I'm only on Twitter, unlike the fellow to my right here. I'm on Twitter at Dave_Ched.
Expand your horizons, Dave.
No.
On Twitter at Morley_Scott. on the gram, as the kids say, at Morley_Scott. And on the Snapchatty, MSW63. So
I can't believe I'm hearing this.
I don't know. I don't know what Snapchat's all. I don't do filters and stuff, but I'll just. I do like to say I'm going to do my best to provide some behind the scenes stuff on road trips, especially with Snapchat. So if you're interested in that, but don't be late because they're only there for 24 hours, right?
That's right. Yeah,
that's the kind of the neat
quick.
thing.
Yeah.
If you put up a dumb post, it's gone. And I put up a lot of dumb posts. Believe me.
Nice. That second one sounded like you were on a drug, just so that you know. Yeah, I'm on the gram. What
and knowing you,
Instagram, as you old folks call it, right? You know,
and knowing you like I do, Morley, and I'm pretty sure she's probably have tried to press you to put filters. Resist the pressure from your daughter.
That's right.
To do that,
she gets me into it all. She
say no
on it all. And I'm on the Facebook, but I'm not going to respond to you because unless I've been at your house for dinner, we're not going to be Facebook friends.
Fair enough.
Nothing personal.
Fair. Nothing personal. No, I get that exactly.
So invite them to dinner.
I'm so glad.
That's my way to get.
I'm
dinner
so glad we're friends.
Right?
This is good. Yeah, exactly. Here's your dinner.
Thank you.
Bits right there. Okay.
Well, we have shared a dinner.
We have.
Yeah.
Yes, we have.
Yes, we have. See? You did eat that night, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
So there you go.
All right.
Spinning the tunes. You can find me at 56 Parkies on the history at Esk's History.
Perfect.
You can also find me on 6:30 CHED every afternoon reading sports and football games.
Excellent. Thank you for
And what's on Monday night again?
The Eskimos Coaches Show with
Jeez,
Jason
I've never
Maas
heard of
and
that.
myself.
Holy man. Sounds like a great show.
It'll be archived on the audio page at 630ched.com.
Which we do often because
he's
we're
a
doing
plugs machine. All right.
Smooth.
And you can find us at Esk Empire Pod, of course, me at Free Policious. Thank you again for downloading, as without you, there is no Empire. The show is back next week as normal on Monday, and we will recap the BC game and, of course, get geared up for the home opener. As is tradition, it's time to cuddle up in your chair by the fire as we read this year's edition of The Night Before Football.
And now, it's story time with Uncle Andrew.
'Twas the night before football all across this great nation. CFL is returning to the fans' jubilation. Fans come in all sizes, some young and some old, and they all wore their colors, green, red, black, or gold. They've been waiting since winter, saying, "Is it June yet?" Now the camps are all over and the rosters all set. Every fan is a flutter, every stadium done up, every team is just hoping to win the Grey Cup. Durant, the Owls' leader, does he still have the goods? And what is that D like without linebacker Bear Woods? The Red Blacks are champs, Harris now at the helm. With so many changes, are they in the same realm? The Argos have new guys in Trestman and Pop. The fans will all yell Ricky to SJ nonstop. Oski wee wee, Oski wah wah. Zach is healthy again, and this D has some claws. The Bombers will fly on Matt Nichols' back. They want the playoffs and a chance for payback. New stadium, new players grab all the headlines, but can Jones and the Riders avoid all the fines? Bo Levi and Messam and Daniels, oh my. The season can be yours, but the Grey Cup, nice try. Lions are contenders with that receiving core. Jennings leads them on field where you'll definitely hear them roar. And then there's our Esks, the O ready to blossom. Second year with these coaches is sure to be awesome. Riley and Bowman are likely to air it, but here comes the mayor and this D led by Sherritt. Zylstra will catch and White will outshake you, and let's not forget the power of Earthquakeu. Each team starts out even, each team has a chance, each D to prevent, each O to advance. The season goes quick, let's all try to remember, the effort starts now, so you play in November. So it's time, hurry quick, grab a drink and a snack. It's time for CFL kickoff, baby, football is back. Woo! For Morley and Dave and Superfan Mike, I'm Andrew. Remember, you can't catch footballs with your face, and we will absolutely talk to you next week.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.